I think if you separate it into kind of two categories, maybe a category, if you talk to people that may not be terribly familiar with theater, and I don't mean necessarily judgmental, but theater just isn't something that they've been exposed to, it's not been part of their world. They may be aware of it, and they often will tell you that theater is dead and that movies killed theater. Because because movies, the reason they're more popular is because they're more real, which is funny when you think about it in terms of theater, because that's actually happening in front of you in the same space. The story is not necessarily real, but the event itself is real, whereas film is recorded and you're just watching something sort of passively. You asked what makes theater unique among the art forms. I think it comes in two kind of categories. One being the live connection with an audience, that there is this human entity as the audience that's reacting to human entity performing. And you have this conversation happening on stage between the performers, but you also have a conversation happening, kind of an unwritten conversation, an unrecorded conversation even, happening between the audience and the performers and what they're observing, what they're seeing. I think the other category that it happens is that when you look at theater, it incorporates all of the other art forms. You know, the set may be inspired by a painting. A piece of music may be used as part of the theater. Certainly movement and dance may be involved. If you're talking about a musical, you have all of those things automatically crammed together in that performing art. So that collaboration of the art forms also is present in theater, which makes it unique. People would be shocked to realize that we spend all of this energy to make it look like those things that happen backstage aren't happening. The set magically appears, the smoke is supposed to be part of the story, but backstage there's somebody pulling a rope and pushing up a set piece or pressing a button to make sure that the elevator is working, and two people are over here working on the smoke machine. And then in the back of the theater, like I mentioned before, there is a stage manager who's calling all of the cues via headset to tell the people to go and do that. Well, in the meantime, down below the theater itself, there's a dressing room where there are dressers working on putting people in wigs, helping them adjust their makeup, making sure the next costume is ready. And then even further than that, there are people that are working on maintenance of all the pieces that are coming off stage and storing and figuring out where they go so that the new set pieces can come in. It's a huge effort. And that's another part of that collaborative process that I spoke of earlier, which is all of those are artists in their own right. You may not think of it, you may not often think about, oh, the person who paints the set has to be an artist. Well, yeah, you try to take bricks and make them look three-dimensional with just paint. And that's an art form, and it takes a trained artist to be able to achieve that effect. We usually average about a 6-week rehearsal process. So you will cast a show, and then you will have 6 weeks of rehearsal before it opens. Sometimes it's longer. Sometimes you may be lucky enough to have 8 weeks. Sometimes there's a winter break that falls in between the casting and the beginning, and work is expected to be done then. Actors are memorizing lines, and directors are meeting with designers. That design process for a director can start a year in advance of a show. So you rehearse off-site until the week before the performance. And then that week you slowly add the technical elements, lights, sound, set. One of the last things that you start to add is the costumes and makeup. So that all the pieces are coming together for what the audience ultimately will see as the show, but it takes time to break those down. Technicians probably had 14 hours of work that day. They arrived 2 hours before to set up, and we're still tearing things down 2 hours afterwards. And I think that's part of the piece of creation of theater people don't realize. Oh, wow, it takes time to figure out how the light needs to be treated in the scene, how the sound works, how the set moves in at the same time, and then you add the actors in to help tell that story. It takes lots of practice to coordinate all of that. You feel a calling, and if that calling is within you, it's something that you certainly should pursue. An opportunity that does not come very often to be able to explore yourself on those levels. I think it's an important thing.